Okay, recording on audio, recording on video. Let's do this. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It is a brand new year, and it is also a brand new decade. I am thinking about doing a decade recap on this channel after this video, where I'm thinking about doing best and worst books that I've read over the last decade. By which I really mean the last 5 years, because that's when I started actually tracking everything I read. But for today, I am going to do my top 5 books of 2019, with a couple honorable mentions. By the way, I will be drinking a variety of hydrating beverages in this video because I have spent the last week and a half being extremely sick, and you might be able to hear it in my voice, but at any rate, we be tired. So I'll be doing this video in order of when I read them in the year. So the first book of 2019 that made it onto my top 5 list is Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi. This is honestly almost like a collection of short stories that follows two different lineages of these half-sisters. Both sisters were born in Ghana, and then one of them ended up marrying a white slave trader, and one of them was captured and sold into slavery. And so then each chapter alternating follows their two lineages through the next several centuries, I think. And it basically goes up to present day. And it is an extremely moving book. Because it is kind of a collection of short stories, I would say that a few of the chapters are a lot more impactful than some of the others, but the whole story and the way that it was conceived, tracing their generations and seeing hints of the previous generation and the new one, and how their different paths end up kind of converging. It was just so moving, so good, and is the kind of book that I got from the library, and I'm going to buy a physical copy of it when I decide that I want to reread it, because I know I'm going to want to reread it. So the next book of my top 5 is the second book in the Sixth World series. This is called Storm of Locusts. The first one's called Trail of Lightning. So I'm kind of considering the whole series in my top 5, even though I only read Storm of Locusts this year. I read Trail of Lightning last year, and it did make an honorable mention on my channel for top 5, but it didn't quite make it into the top 5 because it still felt very sort of preliminary, not a lot had happened in the world yet. We didn't know a whole lot about who these people were. It's not designed as a trilogy, it's just designed as a continuing series. So I really wanted to get more information before I made it one of my top 5. And this second book delivered in spades. I am so happy. We know so much more about Maggie. We know so much about the world and about the other sort of side characters that show up in the book. And we also see Maggie just sort of start to slowly open up and have more of a found family. And found family is definitely one of my favorite literary tropes. So I am enjoying this series so much. There is supposedly a third book coming out this year in 2020, but there's no release date or cover or title or anything of that sort. So who knows if it'll actually be published this year, but whenever the third one comes out, I will be reading it. The next of my top 5 is Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I had been meaning to read this book for years. I had a friend who is, one of my go-tos for queer fiction, and they kept telling me that I needed to read this book, and I just didn't get around to it until this year when I read it in audiobook form, and oh my god, it is so beautiful and heartbreaking and had so many emotions. And Achilles and Patroclus have never been a huge historical pairing for me, but I feel like I know them so much more, and I love them so much more, and they love each other so much. My friend was telling me about how one of their friends has a tattoo that is based off of the very last line in Song of Achilles, with stars and reaching out, and I just, oh, so good. If you've read this book, please talk to me about it. I have a lot of emotions. And this is another one. I read it in audiobook form. I do own it, but I'm gonna have to get a physical copy of it because I need to shove this book at people and make them read it. And the next book on my top 5 is the only finished series, which is the Shades of Magic series by V.E. Schwab. The first book is Darker Shade of Magic. I read all 3 of these books this year. I read the first one back in like May, and it has kind of its own complete arc. So I finished the first one and I was like, okay, that was definitely good. I really enjoyed the world. I want to get back to it eventually, but I don't need to read the next one right now. Especially because I think the 3rd book hadn't come out yet. But the 3rd book came out, and I managed to get both the 2nd and 3rd books from my library, like pretty much back to back. And I blitzed through A Gathering of Shadows and A Conjuring of Light in November, I want to say in like 2 or 3 weeks, because the end of Gathering of Shadows ends on an absolutely screaming cliffhanger, and I'm so glad that I did not have to wait for book 3 to come out. Oh my god. This series is so fun. It's basically about a sorcerer named Kel who is able to travel between parallel versions of London, and he travels into Grey London, which is our London, and he crosses paths with Delilah Bard, who is wonderful. She is a cross-dressing thief who pickpockets him, and then they paths collide and magic is revealed, adventures and world-saving occur, and also some really, really good dancing and kissing scenes. Those are really fun. So I did think that the 3rd book gets a little bit darker and a little bit heavier and a little bit more tiring than the other 2, but the first 2 are honestly so much fun, and the 3rd book does still have a good resolution, even if it is just a lot of like death and destruction and doom for a while. And yeah, once this set is available in like a box set of all of them, I will be purchasing that, because this is again another one that I need to reread, one that I need to lend out, etc. And the final book of my top 5 of 2019 is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. This is one that's very popular, so it's delightful if you haven't read it. You know, it's magic and essentially Harry Potter with the serial numbers filed off, and just delightful gay hijinks between 2 boys who are very dumb and very in love. I enjoyed it immensely. I will not be reading book 2 until book 3 comes out, because the reviews for book 3 will have to basically say that they fixed what people didn't like in book 2. So as is, I am pretending that this is actually a standalone book, and what a shame she never wrote any more in the series. I really enjoyed this book, and I will be, again, sharing this with people that I think I can get to read it. I'll also probably be rereading this one at some point. So that was it for my official top 5, but I do have 2 honorable mentions. These are books that I still really enjoyed over the year, but just didn't quite make it into the top list. One of these is Provenance by Ann Leckie. This is a continuation of the Ancillary Justice series. Well, it's more of a companion, not really a continuation, although it does occur just in time after the Ancillary Mercy series. This one has a completely different main character as the Ancillary series. It is a woman named Ingray. I forget what, planet or civilization she comes from, but it is a world in which there are 3 standard genders, basically man, woman, and what's called Ni-Man, and which is just a 3rd gender, and children are referred to by a non-binary pronoun, and then when they sort of like reach majority, they choose which of their genders they want to be. And what I think is really interesting in this setup is that there is, even within this system, a character who identifies more as non-binary, like outside of their triad of genders, I guess. Like, she ended up picking woman, but she never really knew, like, none of them ever really felt right, and she never really knew which one she was supposed to pick, basically. So I really found this book delightful. It's a kind of like mystery thriller type story, but set in a really fun sci-fi queer world. So it's got twists and turns, and it's really, really fun. And the last honorable mention is Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. This is, again, sort of a companion to Uprooted, which are her, like, fairy tale retelling stories. This one is based off of Rapunzel. No, not Rapunzel, Rumpelstiltskin, sorry. This one, honestly, is partly on the list just because I loved the romantic relationships in this one, but there's also really great family dynamics, and the story is really inventive. This one leans more heavily into Rumpelstiltskin than I feel like Uprooted did into Beauty and the Beast. This is more of a direct retelling, but I love the twist that she did with it. It involves, like, the Fae, and there's, like, a fire demon, and It's just really good. But that is all for my top books of 2019. I don't read a ton of bad books in a year because I'm very much a mood reader. So if I'm not enjoying something, I just won't finish it. But I do want to do a compilation of the sort of choice worst books of each year that I've been tracking. So I think that's what's coming out next. And I hope you guys stick around for that one. Leave a comment of what one of your favorite books of 2019 was, and I will see you guys very soon with another video. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye!